I've been seeing from clients too, right?
Resurfacing of wounds.
Yes, that they don't even know, right? Like, why is it that I'm stuck here? But it's an old wound that they didn't even think it was a big deal because they just moved on with their life, right? And that we don't get validated.
Please note that the content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and not substitute for professional mental health advice. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please contact your local emergency services by dialing 911. For immediate emotional support, you can also reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. Remember, help is always available.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first episode of our podcast. My name is Marilyn Mejia-Peña. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am the founder of Resilient Social Working. And I am very proud to introduce our first episode of this podcast today. I think it's going to be a treat for all of you. And at the same time, the hope with this and the goal of this project is that we all heal together, okay? That we are able to look at some of our hard stuff, right? Our traumas, things that we endured throughout our life, and pull out some of the strengths, some of the learning lessons, right? Some of the lessons that were shared in that experience. Though painful as they may have been, it is learning how to pull some of our strengths. How do we overcome that? Because obviously we survived it, we're here. So that's what this episode is about. It's about pulling out some of the strengths that me personally, that I pulled out of my own trauma experience as a child. And this is about early childhood experiences. So we're going back to our very, very early days. For me, when I was 2.5, was a toddler. And I am accompanied in this one by Vivian Phan, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, has been working in the trauma field for now over, I think, 15 years now. And is a beautiful soul, and she is also bearing her soul to you, okay, so that we can all learn together from each other how to heal, how to pull our strengths from the hardship, to be resilient and to be able to move forward with our life, so we are not carrying on those wounds unhealed. We want to help them heal scars so that we can then go on and be our full genuine selves. And that is the goal of this podcast. Okay, how do we pull from our pain, and what are the lessons that were kind of shared in that experience that we can learn so that we can move forward, okay, and then apply those strengths to our current selves and our future selves so that we can thrive. So I hope you enjoy it. And again, be kind to yourself. If this is very triggering for you and you need some support, please remember there is also 988. You can call, you can text, you can chat if you are feeling like you need extra support. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, everyone. I'm Marilyn from Resilient Social Work, and I'm here with...
My name is Vivian. We are here to welcome you.
Yeah, just to talk about stuff, and talk about trauma, because that's our lane, and how do we heal, or why is it hard sometimes, right, to kind of tap into things that hurt us in the past, that maybe we kind of overcome, or we thought we did, but then it resurfaces when we least expect it and we don't want it, but that won't show up. So we're just going to talk about today specifically about early wounds that we've had in our childhood
that maybe we forgot about, or didn't, or thought that we had resolved it and moved on, but maybe now as adults they're showing up in some formal way. Um, and how we see it with our clients, but how do we see it in ourselves, right? Because we start with us. And that's the reason why I'm talking about this personally, because it showed up for me and I was like, I was done with this. Why is this showing up?
I love this conversation, and what an amazing invitation to invite others to the table.
Yeah.
These are generally maybe taboo or private or scary or ugly conversations until they're not.
Yeah.
And when we speak, it's usually from that space where it is not. It just is. Like it's not ugly or shameful, or, we're really just taking up space. And early childhood wounds, that's a big space to explore. At least for me personally. Oh man.
Yeah.
And I definitely have seen it show up in my adult life.
For sure. Especially lately, I was like, what is this stuff coming up for me? I'm done with this. Or at least I thought I was. And then there I am bawling.
Oh, I have a big one recently. Definitely of that.
Yeah. You want to share?
Sure, I can share. And it was interesting because it didn't manifest in a personal context, although ended up being very personal because it's me. It showed up professionally in like a professional development moment. It was a chance for me to really alchemize all of what was happening into a giant leap forward professionally. And somehow my early childhood wounds recreated themselves in a real-time adult professional relationship.
Wow.
In a setting that I never would have imagined being so trauma triggered, nor responding in a triggered response. I was so activated and I didn't like it and I wasn't ready for it and I knew it was happening, but I also didn't. And that's the beauty of trauma. It's conscious when you've done the work, and a lot of it is so unconscious because it's embedded in us, in your body, in your nervous system. So I was conscious and not. I felt I was losing my marbles because I could see what's happening and then not know how to do any different in the same moment.
Yeah.
And then I was so humbled because I'm like, oh, here I am, 3-year-old Viv all over again. Maybe 4. I'll give you 4. Okay. 4-year-old self being my 38-year-old self, and almost kind of responding in a way that was mirrored my little me. Yeah, it was so wild, and it showed up. So my childhood wound is feeling unheard and unseen, growing up in a space where you're invisible, like seen but not heard, and that was actually preferred, especially as a female, and growing up in a Vietnamese American home. So the more invisible, the better. The less trouble you are, the less space you take up, the less you have to be accommodated, the better. So not only are you invisible, you also have obligation. So you carry a weight too.
Okay. So obligations to do what?
Great question. To fill in the gaps, to be in servitude, to help, to heal, to nurture, to fix, to clean, to make better, to calm, to be everything. To be perfect.
To be perfect, right? Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big responsibility, to be perfect.
Especially at 4.
Yeah.
So I was all those things. Fast forward to my work-related stressor, where I landed in an environment that it started to mirror my home, and instead of me consciously knowing how to maneuver it, it was my early childhood wounds that was activated. And I can see that now as I'm grounded and I'm out of that space. In the moment, it was really scary and ugly, and I acted like what my childhood wound would have done.
Yeah. And I think that happens to all of us, for sure. It shows up in so many ways. It shows up in our homes. It shows up in our jobs. It shows up on the street, at the store. because they're there. Like you said, they're in our body, they're in our genes, right? In our DNA, embedded in there. And sometimes it's our stuff, sometimes it's our ancestor stuff that's not even ours, that just gets passed down. But we carry it all. So then it's up to us, right? And what do we do with it? Do we look at it? Do we try and work with it and actually make some changes this time around? Or do we continue with the same patterns? And that's the work, right? That's the work that we are doing personally, I think, for you and I, in our lives, in trying to better ourselves and trying to learn from life lessons from our trauma. But that's also what we do in our work, in therapy with our clients, in trying to help them see, the wounds, right? Identify what the wound is, and how do we translate it into strengths. What are some of the strengths that came out of that? Because you definitely got some strengths, right? That carried you to be who you are today, and do some things in your life that are great. So it was painful, it was horrible. Nobody should go through the things, and have those expectations placed, or whatever the trauma was that we endured. Nobody should go through that. However, since we already did go through that, those life lessons are important. And if we pull the life lessons from it and see it as we gain some strength from that, because obviously we survived it. So because we survived it, and we are actually making something out of our lives, that means that there's some strengths that came out of there, right? That we learned to utilize. Some of them, are served us well, and some of them, like I said, the ones that come out are not the greatest.
Yes,
because the response we have to it, and I don't know, you can share kind of how it came out for you, right? Did it come out like, obviously not in a very positive way when it came out?
not the first way, but now that I'm grounded, I can process it. And hearing you talk, it makes me think of resilience, which I didn't grow up knowing. I didn't even know that word. I didn't know that concept. And then knowing you and through your work and your passion and your story, that word resilient is now embedded in my language. Like I think of you, it's part of, our agency and our work. But aside from that, it's my lifestyle now. So I think of that. But before being resilient, especially as a kid, but honestly, I'll just use the more recent example. I responded exactly like I did as a kid at first, which was I was invisible and continued to play in a role even though I wasn't heard or seen, rather than making strides or efforts to have a voice and assert myself rather than just accept and take and lay back. And then also I took on a role. That's that obligation, that expectation that I slipped into so easily that wasn't even mine to begin with. And I just took that on and ran with it and carried that weight and that responsibility and a whole backpack full of tasks and roles and responsibilities that wasn't mine to begin with. But I'm very comfortable, especially as a helper healer, carrying things that belong to others. Yeah. And so it was a lesson to know where I am, where I end, where I begin, where my boundary is, where my sense of self is, and that I don't have to carry things for others.
People's stuff.
Yes, their baggage, I guess. Yes, other people's stuff. And then also because I'm not a child and I've done 20 years of life since then, 30 years of life since my 4-year-old self, and also therapy and trauma healing and all of my own journey since then. Not only did I default, so that was my default, my trauma, my genetic and natural response, but on top of that, because I've done some work, I was so angry at myself for responding there, so I was explosive.
Yeah,
and it wasn't pretty. Because I'm pretty bossy, and I'm also quite grounded, like in my best self. I'm actually more mellow, very more chill. My vibration isn't really activated on aggression or like just that level, that frequency, and I went there. So I got very angry.
Yeah, which is, it's also survival, right? We go to our survival tools that sometimes they serve us great and sometimes they get us in trouble.
Yeah.
and makes us feel yucky because it's not truly who we are, but it's just coming out as a response, right? It's a survival response that's embedded in there, and it's not ideal when we're at the workplace or with our with anybody really.
That was the wildest part. Usually, my early childhood wounds come out in my family, obviously, which is easily triggered by, or my personal relationship.
Yeah.
So in my workplace was new for me. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big button that was pushed there. Definitely pushing out the wounds, But I mean, it's. I think it goes to reflect too that we're all, that it's a journey, and that it's continuous. It doesn't really end. Unfortunately, I wish it ends. Maybe I like to see it when it ends, but we are continuously learning, and that we are going to have those moments that are going to come up. I think once we're self-actualized, maybe they won't anymore because they're no longer serving us, and I think that's part of the journey, right? Learning what to let go of, and eventually do let it go where it doesn't impact you anymore when you're placed in those positions of feeling like you need to be the one to step it up, right? Like you need to be the one to take charge. And when the button of safety is pushed, where the alarm button is pushed, where you need to, in order for you to feel safe, you need to get wild, right? And I'm saying you, but I'm talking of just in general in myself, because that's what happens, right? With trauma, we are hot brain people, usually, and tend to respond, not so kindly and nicely because it's a survival tool. It had to get us there, right? For us to be the age that we are now.
I will say that being able to appreciate my self-actualization journey better came with giving myself grace and being a human. And that came from my own healing work along with becoming trauma informed. Now that I'm trauma informed as a clinician, I always tell everyone I work with I'm a human first, and then I'm a survivor because I have to factor in those responses, and then I'm a clinician last. But now that I've understood about trauma, I've understood my plus my humanness, trauma informed plus my own humanness. I've learned that this is part of the aftermath of trauma. We don't often get to pick when and where things come up. We don't often get to be done with work. So being able to give myself grace, like, oh, this work could be lifelong, or there's a part of it that is evolutionary because I evolve, and being okay with that, rather than feeling like I needed to be done or fix it all. It gave me. I was like, okay, I can do this self-actualization journey. Because at first it felt exhausting, like, oh my god, is it forever? Like, am I ever gonna get anywhere? Rather than now, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, let's get rid of it because it feels nice. It feels so nice, the freedom that you get once you actually see it head on, the ugliness, right? Our shadows is like, oh man, that's not pretty. I don't really want to go there, but we actually do the work, right? And that's what our clients do. They're so brave when they come to us, that they come and do the work, because it is work. It is not. It is something that consciously you have to choose to do. It's not unconscious, and it's a lot, right? Again, because we have to look at the parts of ourselves that are damaged, right? That are wounded. Let's say damaged, but that are wounded, and therefore, when you're wounded, you're not at your best, and you're not the nicest person. You are not the brightest. You are not, you're not shining. You definitely are struggling when we are not, when we are the wounded person. So we have to look at ourselves in that way and not the person that we want to be, and that's what's hard. Because the person we picture in our brain, right, that we like, oh, we are this great person, or the one that we want to put out there is not our wounded person. We want to hide that one because that one it's hard. We don't want to go back there.
She's hurt.
She's hurt. So thank you for sharing that, Vivian, because it is such a journey. I think we all struggle, and some of the trainings we do too, I've done, it's how do we deal with trauma in the workplace, because it comes up. We're people. So even though we're employees, we're workers, bosses, whatever we are, trauma definitely shows up very clearly. And if we have not worked through it, in the way that we manage, in the way that we do our work, in the way that we communicate with other people, and resolve problems and conflict in the workplace. And I think that's the biggest trigger is conflict in the workplace when the buttons are pushed and woo, you can tell, right, when trauma is it's at play. Um, so yeah. So but early childhood wounds are, you said that was when you were 4. They're present, but sometimes we don't acknowledge. And that's what I'm seeing with clients too, is that early childhood wounds, because if they didn't go to therapy or if they didn't have anybody to validate their feelings, anybody to feel safe with, or anybody that will say, hey, I know this was hard, but you know what? You didn't deserve that. Or you deserve better, or whatever it is, some sort of validation. If you don't get it when you're 2, 3, 4, 5, all throughout your childhood, then it just gets overlooked, but it never got resolved, right? And the wound is still there, and it's very much fresh, even though it happened such a long time ago. And whenever it gets pushed, oh my gosh, well, it just surfaces. And sometimes we don't even understand when it comes from because it's such a long time ago. Um, and when I see with clients is some of the wounds is it's children that are not grown-ups, but maybe their parents separated when they were young, so they never really got validation about that separation. So we see clients for separation, and they kind of get that language, they get the validation. This is hard, um, but a lot of people don't get that. The parents just disappear for whatever reason, right? Grown-up issues that happen in the life, and they leave, but they still carry that wound with them. And then it surfaces in their relationships, it surfaces in their parenting, it surfaces in, grief and loss, in attachment situations, breakups, things like that. But there were very early childhood wounds that never really got tapped into. So
I don't know if we were ready for that in our old school parenting, and I have to give my parents that credit, and I also have to call them for what it is and their choices on how to resolve it. I don't know if they were aware of the importance of mirroring my sister and our experience, and the number it does fast forward, and particularly like what you said, like what happens when a child is not mirrored or validated or given space or shown that they exist in the context of really hard moments, big feelings, loss, hurt, parental separation, trauma, domestic violence, any type of extra familial baggage or drama. If a child isn't given space or a parent isn't comfortable to sit with those big feelings or those big conversations, it's gonna go overlooked.
Yeah, and I think for most of us, I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, so for us, our parents, like you said, I love my parents. I think we've made our peace, I think they did the best that they could with what they had at the moment, with the tools that they had. So I have grace for them too, because I think they were going through their own journey and they couldn't really give me as a child, you know, the validation because they were struggling themselves. So, you know, in hindsight, I'm sure they would do better if they could do better, but we can't go backwards. So at this point, it's just owning it, which is they have, and I think that makes such a difference in healing as well.
True.
That they have to own what happened, right? And say, I'm sorry, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yes.
So that has happened for me, and I'm lucky in that because not very many people get that, right?
Not me.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and that's something that we have to make our peace. And when we work with domestic violence, we see it all the time. They don't get the justice, they don't really get, or any type of abuse, right? You kind of have to find your own sense of peace, because you're not going to get it from anybody else. So yeah, so it is something that I think we need to tap into, and it's an important conversation, and hopefully this brings light to people too as we're talking about this, to kind of go into their own journey, and get help too if they need to, if they don't have the proper support, to get help to unpack it, because it is definitely wounds that are going to surface at one point or another if I'm sure maybe they're not seeing it as that sometimes, but there they are, right? And it does come out in our interpersonal relationships at home, ooh, yeah, it's very hard. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And I'll share some of mine, because I think it's important for us to also share with you, um, to all the listeners, right? To whoever's listening to us, that we are people too. So though we are, therapists, we are, trainers, consultants, social worker, all the whatever professional titles we have and hold, we are still people too. And aside from that, it is to reflect to you that it is possible, right? That the healing journey is continuous, but it is possible for us to sort of move forward and not be stuck in the wound or in the victim sort of phase, that we can move forward and thrive, um, and be our best, so we can let go of some of the past because we can't really fix it anymore. But for me, one of the earliest ones that I can remember, I was two. Okay, so I was two and a half. And again, I love my parents. We are a piece. They did the best that they could. But they were struggling. They were young parents. My mom was 21 when she had me. So dad was 23. They were very young. And my dad was a merchant marine. So he will be off, to work on a ship for months at a time. And then he will come and stay for like a month or two and then leave again. But when he will come back, um, he used to drink a lot. He was an alcoholic. So, it wasn't pretty at home. There was domestic violence. And my mom also, young mom, right? Trying struggle. We did have, my grandma that lived, in the same town as us, my mom's mom. So there was some support there, but at the same time, not the support in the sense of like, yes, there's domestic violence, come stay with me. It was like, no, that's your husband. You need to go back to your husband. Um, so she really had no options, right? So I'm just setting that up because it is important for the story I'm going to share. Okay, so that we have a little bit of kind of a background setup. So I'm two, and at two and a half, I'm running errands. I know that's very young, but at the same time, you know, I was the oldest. So it was my mom, my dad, and me, right? That's it. So I was it. Okay. So in the morning, I will go. My errand was go buy 2 eggs and go buy an Alka-Seltzer. Sometimes it was an egg and an Alka-Seltzer, right? And my journey to the store was about a block away. It was around the corner from my house. I will go, and I'm too have little feet, and little steps. And there was this stepping stones, that were huge to me at the time, that I had to walk through, to get to the store. And so, I managed, right? And I made my way to the store, climbing through this damn stepping stones. Um, and then once I got to the store, those 2 huge steps I had to climb to get to the store. So then I would get there, and then I will ask for my 2 eggs and the Alka-Seltzer. I don't have anything to carry, so I have to carry in my hand. So 1 egg, right, the 2 eggs, and somehow an Alka-Seltzer somewhere. And sometimes it was the egg and the Alka-Seltzer. So I will go and I will ask La Niña Luz, bless her heart. And she will give them to me, and she will say, con cuidado, right? Be careful, because she knew, right? It was a journey back home, and I will be back a few minutes later. I will come down the giant stairs. Somehow I managed, and I made it. Like, yes, I made it. So I will be so proud of myself because I made it down the 2 stairs. And then I will walk outside, and there was this tree there. I don't remember what kind of tree it was, but then there was this root on the floor. And the roots, oh my God, the root was my nemesis. I hated that freaking root. So I had to strategize, right? And figure out how the heck I'm going to go around this thing so it doesn't trip me.
Yes.
So, I will stand, and she will see me, right? Because I will see her looking at me, and she'll see me, and I will sit there, and I will go back and forth, just looking at, like around. Maybe I can go this way, maybe I can go that way. So finally I will just commit, and I will go through it. Okay. But you know what happens, right? It will trip me every freaking time.
Yes.
So I will fall. So, 9 times out of 10, there was the eggs flying out of my hand, cracked on the floor. And I will just look at it and I'll be like, ah, of course. I will just bawl, right? I would just cry and sit there crying for another who knows how long and strategizing how I'm going to go back to the store and ask this lady to give me a free egg. Because, my quarter or whatever they gave me change, it was exact. We were broke. We didn't have any money. So I couldn't, I couldn't go ask for any more money. So I will have to ask her and beg her. And I'll go walk my little self back to the store and just beg, please, please let me have another egg. And she would look at me, and sometimes she would, she would give me that egg. And again, she would say, right, be careful, watch where you step. So here I am, even more conscious, right? Like more conscious. I have to watch my step and where I'm going. That freaking egg. So, it will fall again. And then I will come back sometimes and she'll be like, no, I can't. I get it. She has to feed her children, She can't be giving me free eggs. By the end, she will have to give me a whole carton of eggs, So I will just have to go back home empty-handed sometimes just with one egg, right? In the Alka-Seltzer. Or sometimes it was nothing. And I knew I was waiting at home because, my dad had a rough night, right? Or happy night, who knows? And then there was, of course, my mom that barely survived the night. So that's why I had to go to the store, right? Because she couldn't go. She was recovering from the night before, right? And I would get home, and of course, it was the yelling and the shouting, and you're dumb, and why did you break the egg, and blah, 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 you're good for nothing. All the whatever things you can think of, right, came out of my mom's mouth because she was frustrated with reason, right? But at the same time, I was 2.5.
Wild.
So, though I get it, right? I get it, and I empathize with her because I'm like, she was barely surviving, and here I was, she figured she trusted me, so I give her that, right? So those are some of the things that I'm pulling out from there.
It's a giant reframe.
Yeah. So that was one of my earliest ones. So what are some of the wounds from there? Well, definitely I'm dumb, I'm stupid, right? Like I'm definitely clumsy, because I break shit. And what else? Let's see. So that was one of the wounds. So for me, it's like I needed to prove myself, right? That I could, that I am that I'm not clumsy, that I'm good, whatever, all this stuff. But and then the other one is just my self-esteem, right? So my self-esteem, my self-concept was really broken because obviously I felt like I wasn't good enough, right? I wasn't good enough to, or not even talented. Was like, I was inept. But what is the opposite of that? I wasn't capable. I wasn't capable enough to be trusted, right? With something so simple as to go buy some eggs. So that wound sort of translates into me also thinking I'm not good enough when I'm good enough at certain things. But the question is still there, right? And the little nagging or the little voice of like, oh, maybe they're not going to like it, or maybe this is not going to be, I don't know. So the questioning and the self-sabotaging definitely has followed me throughout my life in keeping me from sharing myself in certain ways or sharing my talents in certain ways because of the little voice that I had when I was 2, which is ridiculous.
It's been part of something you've carried for all these years.
Right. But when you
look, it lives in you.
Yeah, but when you look in high, I'm like, what the heck is that? I don't want that. Like that's just stupid. But we have it, right? And it's not something that I had thought about. This egg situation, like I hadn't thought about it in a long time, and it's just recently came to me. But it's something that surfaced for me because as we're doing this podcast here, this is some of the things that I think have kept me right from shining my light and from being more adventurous or from sharing my talents or just sharing my voice.
What's fascinating thank you for sharing, about hearing you talk about your story is how many words you have for it. I think that's a part of where how much reflection you did.
Yeah.
because until we've sat with our own stories, you can't really the way you spoke about your story was there's a lot of words, there's language, you paint a whole picture, there's specifics and details. That is just a testament to how much you sat with that, because that's not an easy story. And like, who wants to go back to 2-year-old pain? What? Come on.
That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody wants to do that, but it surfaced, right? So I had to look at it.
And you did, though, because like when you told that story, I can visualize all of that. Like, there's a lot of work.
Yes, and this is work done. And honestly, this is work that's been done in the past week, because that's when he came up for me. He came up about a week ago, and I'm like, what the hell is this surfacing for me? I don't want that.
I think
thought it was done.
Before there's that much specificity, it shows up in your it showed up for me in my adult life. And then once I was brave enough to really sit with it, now I can pull, like you did, that like a memory or a specific event where I felt that way. But before I could sit with it, it lived in me. I didn't even know I was still keeping small or being happily invisible and somehow doing the most at the same time. Like, what? How do you do that? How do you be invisible and be extra at the same damn time?
Yeah, exactly. That was me. Yes, same here, right?
I didn't know where it came from until I did what you did, like sit there and unpack, and then that's where it resurfaced. And they're almost like, for me, it came as like it's like a movie reel. I can watch it. Yeah. If I close my eyes, I can watch it.
Yeah, me too. I can.
Fucked up.
I know.
It's so sad when it replays.
Yes. I was bawling. I was bawling when it came to me. It was like at 3:00 in the morning. It's a random ass time,
course, right? That hour.
I'm like, oh my God, why am I thinking about this, right?
And then, that you forgot about it, and all of a sudden it came at that hour.
Yeah, and then of course I'm unpacking it at that time. Like, oh my God, this was a lot. Because it was a lot, but nobody acknowledged that because my parents were in survival mode themselves, So who else was there? I did have my beautiful neighbor. I love her. She's like my grandma, who I call her my grandma. She's my unofficial grandma, who did all the grandma stuff with me.
Meaning that's who helped you through those?
Well, they were, and I was a little bit older, but they were my comfort zone, where she would tell me. She was a great storyteller, so she would tell me stories, like moral stories. Oh my God, her husband was a fighter, and he taught me how to defend myself when I was like 5. Why would he do that? Now it makes sense to me why. I need to defend myself.
Like you needed to know that life lesson.
Well, because it wasn't safe for me at home, so I needed to know that.
It's interesting that those people stand out, because I think that's part of our healing.
Our resilience,
and what makes you resilient. But as you make sense, if you unpack your childhood wounds, please also look for and stay curious about what helped you be resilient, or the opposite. I've read this on the internet. Here goes the internet and me trying to be more resourceful, and they calling it a glimmer. But it's the same thing as what we would call a reframe. You can call it the silver lining, whatever you want to call it. Like, what is the counter to the wound? Who were the people that were there in spite of those who weren't? That whole reframing and using your mental capacity to pull out what the internet is now calling a glimmer is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
That people can do that we have the capacity. Yes. I am beyond overjoyed that the interweb, yes, I'm old, the internet is now pushing glimmers, because we talk enough about trauma, and I'm also quite nervous about how loosely that word is played with on the internet. But I think it's important to look at those glimmers, like your neighbor.
Yeah.
We need to point that out. Like, what? How? Because those are just as important in our story.
Oh, definitely. And there's teachers, there's teachers. So there's neighbors, her children, she had 2 boys, so they were awesome. My uncle was another great, one of my angels, and his friends, so
they're all friends.
Yeah. So there's great people that were in my life, that
and people weren't necessarily like blood, or people who weren't obligated to you. That's powerful. stuff.
So yeah, it is amazing. So some of the strengths that I pulled from my story, I think, like I said, my mom trusted me, so that was great. I did have confidence, so even though my confidence was low, right? So I think that's where we go, where it's like confidence, but and lack of confidence sort of go hand in hand, because she was confident. She trusted me, right, to go and complete this
a
task.
lot of trust.
And yes, a lot of trust and responsibility. But I had, that gave me a sense of confidence. So I pulled a strength,
Beautiful.
problem solving. Because hell, I had to problem solve how I'm gonna get off this damn roof. So it showed me, how to problem solve and strategize, right, at an early age, which I still use today. I've used that all the time, and throughout my life, right, to get me where I'm at. And then kindness. It showed me kindness. It showed me the kindness of La Niña Luz, right, the lady from the store, who gave me kind words, right, and reassurance, like, yes, you can do it. Go slowly down the stairs, or walk slowly. Be careful. And then gave me the eggs for free. I don't know how many eggs she gave for free, but I'm sure it was a lot, because I will break them. Like I said, most times I can't remember a time when I was successful in breaking bones. So I was really trying hard, but I'm like, I must have just broken them every time, So her kindness was great, and then humbleness. I had to be humble to go ask, right, and beg, really beg,
and to come home with an unfulfilled task or uncompleted whatever.
That was courage.
Super humble.
So that was courage. Courage to come back home knowing what was awaiting for me, right? And beyond, and she'll say, I can't lie. I don't have the stuff, Can say somebody robbed me on the way to the store, so I had to own it, right? So I had to have integrity too, to be able to own it, and then the courage to show up, even though it was scary. So courage has taken me through my life, because I've lived, a life of a lot of different challenges. So definitely the courage has been very helpful. Even though it was hurtful and it was horrible, and I wish I didn't have to go through that, right? But those lessons were very helpful in getting me to where I am now, and getting me through different challenges in life. And obviously the wound definitely still was showing up, even in here in my career, in trying to get this podcast going, and showing my face, in social media. But I can say that I put it to rest, because I can talk about it without bawling now.
No, seriously, that's a good or getting angry. Just not having heated reactions or any type of like big giant feelings around it. Yeah, that's a big sign too. Yeah. And those are the glimmers.
Yes.
That's what we would be able to pull from what could have been a lifetime of a really shitty story. Like that narrative, you could have carried that on for the rest of your days.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. And I think it's really beautiful to know that we have that capacity, like as a human. Like coming from that childhood and that space and being raised in that home, it was so unsafe. And from jump, I think I was born into that level of chaos. And from being unseen and somehow doing the most at the same time, I have learned so much about myself. Although it was painful to learn this lesson about self-validation, meaning seeing myself first. I spent so many years seeking external validation, but that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Like I didn't necessarily need that as much as I thought I did, because I've always had my own back. Or I've had the divine guiding me, or my angels, or my ancestors, or my chosen family. The people, like you said, my neighbor, I'll never forget. We called Nana and Papa because they were not nowhere near related, and they were our Nana and our Papa.
Yeah.
Just these certain people, my second grade teacher, like people like just stood out. They really helped me at the time. When truly, I really think I was given this grace of knowing if I'm calm and not being told I'm not shit. I do know I'm self-validating, and I can do that now. And I also have learned responsibility. I can be proud to show up for others and be a helper, not out of obligation or some strange expectation, but I own that part of me. That's what allows me to sit as a helper healer. I know that is who I am to my core, and it's by choice.
Yeah.
It's now the narrative that I'm honored to carry, not like, oh, I'm doing this because, here my mom goes playing dead again, and we have to call 911 for the 5th time over because we're those people, and I'm just that little 4-year-old girl thinking she's dead when I know she's really not dead because she's talking to me, but she thinks she's dying, and it's really strange to be the more sound one. Yeah. And I've also, what I've taken from that is survivorship. And for me, that has come from understanding, and I don't know how I've always had this relationship with life or death. I have made meaning of life through my experiences with death from my childhood. So I've known death, whether it was real losses, whether it was pretend, faked, phony, whether it was used in manipulative form, it was honored in my culture. People who live longer, more revered. When you reach your dying day, you actually appease them and do everything you can to really help people who are facing death. It's an honorable part of life. So the whole circle of life, I've been able to make peace with that for my whole life. Wow. I'm not scared of death. Okay. I never have been. I think it's allowed me to be a helper healer. I think it's allowed me to be expert in trauma, because that's what trauma is. It's a threat to your livelihood, whether it's perceived or real. Yeah. So I'm gonna fucking kill you. It can be just as scary as getting killed. Yeah. In the trauma world, in the way it's ingested and conceptualized and processed in your body, it can feel exactly the same. I can sit with that feeling, which is also scary because I also can push the limit. Closely pushing, not necessarily death, but maybe truly in my journey. And that's been one of my biggest life lessons. I can sit with
whatever comes.
Yeah. And my idea of livelihood and mortality, all of it. So it's allowed me to honor this journey and this work and people's lives and people's journeys. So crazy. It's so crazy to think, because a lot of people don't want to talk about death or someone else dying or the thought of dying or my own mortality.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that one I think is hard too, like thinking of your own mortality. Or anybody else's mortality, like as a mom, I think that switched for me. I love grief and loss, death and dying, all that stuff prior to children, and then went to a conference and I was like, I can't do this. After I had children, it's like I was bawling through the whole thing. I was like, oh my God. So it just gave me a different perspective. I'm okay with it now, but at the moment I was like, I can't lose my children.
It's just heavy. It's one of those heavy ones. Like, how am I okay sitting with this? I don't know. It's just part of this one of the glimmers.
Yeah,
that came from a really fucked up situation. And it's
part of superpowers now,
I was about to say, and it's a part of me. Yeah. It's just part of your story. It really is. I think I journaled about that. Actually, I always have my journal. This was one of my writings recently. I can't leave my house. I also have a new book, which I don't read. I'm trying not to read. I don't read as much, but I'm trying to do better. So this Eckhart Tolle book, Power of Now. I'm sure everyone's heard of it. But one of my most recent journal entries was something about witnesses. It was about friendships. I had a great. This was from the 30th. When was that? Friday?
Just Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, reminded today, thanks universe, reminded where I'm supposed to be, reminded of my strengths, reminded of the lifetimes I've lived, reminded that true friendships transcend, reminded that humanness equals we have a story, reminded that people show up with a little heart. Who knows what is the right way? Finding our way is our story. Friendship equals community equals witnesses equals the best mirrors equals seen.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Thank you. From a few days ago.
Yeah, that was my weekend. Thank you.
Maybe what a beautiful way to end. Maybe that's what it's
beautiful.
To be.
Yes, I think
and that
so
was
too.
Our same vibe this weekend.
It was. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Vivian, for sharing, and thank you so much to the listeners for listening. And I hope that we bring some hope and we bring some light to your journey, right? As you go through your own journey of healing, because it is tough, but doing the work is important because it helps us move forward. So I hope that you pull your strengths from your pain, and go be you.
I hope they receive this invitation, whatever that means for you.
Yeah.
An invitation to join the conversation, to listen more, to dig deeper, to get curious. I don't know. You'll know what the invitation is inviting you to do. I think we started as a welcome, and for me, it's like an invitation to this next step, this next work, this conversation. So
yeah, let's see where the next
invitation. Yeah, to whatever feels right.
Exactly. Let's see what the next conversation is about. But definitely, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.